Welcome to the Happy Lawyer Project. I'm not your host, Akoma Moronu. Akoma is feeling under the weather this week, so I, her partner, will be introducing today's show. This is the Happy Lawyer Project, which was created to help lawyers find happiness in life with a law degree. Together with her guest, she provides the knowledge, skills, insight, and inspiration you need to find your happy. On today's show, Akoma is chatting with Angela Hahn, who is a corporate attorney and side hustles as a health and fitness coach for lawyers. They chat about cultivating the habits to achieve better health and wellness. We did want to provide a trigger warning because there is some discussion of eating disorders in this episode, so please protect your own boundaries and self-care. In the episode, Akoma and Angela discuss how her 7-year battle with binge eating led her to her current passion for health and fitness. Angela provides actionable tips for moving towards a healthier relationship with your body. Hope you enjoy, and don't worry, Akoma will be back for next week's episode.
Welcome Angela Hahn to the podcast. Angela, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
So this happened pretty quickly. So I'm very excited to have you on because I feel like I met you and now you're here and I get to ask you all these fun questions. But for people who don't know who you are, I'd love if you could share a brief description of who you are and what it is that you do.
I guess I'll start with my job because that's the most descriptive. I'm a corporate counsel for a healthcare company in Baltimore during the day, and at most other times I'm a plant-based personal trainer specifically for lawyers.
Everybody who follows me on Instagram, which you all should at the Happy Lawyer Project, know that I have been moving towards a plant-based lifestyle. So you can see why I was so excited when Angela reached out and we were able to connect. But before we dive into all of that cool stuff that she's doing on the personal trainer side, let's start with your journey in the law. Why did you decide to become a lawyer?
Well, I don't really know. I didn't really have a clear reason. And that's probably why I struggled a little bit in law school. After college, I was a teacher for 2 years. And while I was beyond grateful and just so happy with the profound experience with my teacher, with my other teachers and my students, I felt like I was not learning beyond the classroom, like how the system worked. And I felt like I was not making much of an impact beyond the classroom. And I wanted to make an impact. And I wanted to know more. And I thought that studying the law could help me see the bigger picture. And the other answer is that I just thought that it was the right thing to do. I grew up in Seoul, South Korea, and my experience growing up there was that being a lawyer or a doctor or a successful business person gave you status and privilege. And I wanted to do that for my parents. They rarely pressured me, but as an only child, that was something that I wanted to accomplish for my family.
As a new friend, you may not know this about me, but my mother's Chinese. So I grew up with a very traditional Chinese upbringing. I grew up mostly in Malaysia with my Chinese side of the family. So I'm very familiar with it. I think Korea is slightly different, but I also, after college, taught in Thailand and it was all Korean families. So I'm very familiar with the Korean parent from that perspective.
Yes.
So you end up in law school for lots of, questionable reasons, but lots of us did.
Yeah.
And then how did you decide what to pursue outside of law school? Like, how did you get to the in-house role that you have today?
So because I taught for 2 years before law school, I thought that I wanted to go into education. And so I took an education law related job after I graduated. And I love the experience again, but I realized that something was missing. I felt like I was not working on something that I was passionate about as much as I loved being in the field of education. And so I was reading through like how to design your life, how to find your passion. And one of the things that I came across was looking for the biggest pain point. What is the biggest struggle that you went through? And so I asked that question to myself, what is the biggest thing that was a struggle for me? And to me, it was my eating disorder that I had to overcome after 7 years. And so after I overcame that, like for a couple of years, maybe like starting in the middle of law school, I became really interested in trying to help other people overcome something similar. And I also wanted to learn more about the healthcare system. which I sort of interacted with several times going through my eating disorder. And so that's how I sought, like, laser focused on looking for a healthcare job. And that's how I landed in Baltimore today.
Thank you for sharing that about the eating disorder. I think that that's an important part of your story. And I know that it is something that so many people struggle with. And to be honest, it's not something we talk about a lot in the law. I think we talk a lot about issues around alcohol, issues around stress, around depression, around anxiety. And that's not one that I think gets touched on as much. But you're certainly not the first guest who I've had on who has had a history with eating issues and eating disorder. The interesting thing is she also left you were still in the law, but she left the law to pursue health and fitness as well. I think that that's really, really interesting. So I think the point that you made about really looking at your own pain points seems to resonate with people and be a very familiar pattern. I would be interested in asking this because I think about this for myself, and this is a little bit off topic, but for somebody who comes from a traditionally Eastern Asian family, how does the language of passion and pursuing your passion, how did that get introduced to you? And how were you immediately comfortable with it? Because I find that a lot of people, like, it's very Westernized. And not all people who were raised in a non-Western context can transition to that mindset easily.
Yeah, that's a really great question because, like I said earlier, I grew up in a culture where it was very position focused, career focused, and goal focused of where you're going to be at the end of your college life, I guess. Like, what position are you going to take? And is that going to be the position for the rest of your life? And for me, I was lucky enough to have a very supportive family. I think what they really wanted from me was that because I was an only child, they wanted me to have good health and try to be as happy as I could away from them halfway across the world. And so they didn't try to force any particular profession on me. And that's why, because they were so flexible with me, I think that was why I wanted to serve them more, because I know that they were sort of getting pressured by society to have a child that was successful, have a child that kind of fit into a certain mold. And so I feel like I was able to fulfill at least that bare minimum, I guess, called the sort of cultural requirement of becoming a lawyer. But once I was able to do that, I thought that being a lawyer is not sustainable for me, at least, unless I found something that I was excited about to wake up to every single morning. And that's when I decided that I need to do a serious reflection on what drove me personally so that I'll be excited to go to work each day.
That's a very insightful comment that you made about the fact that they didn't push you, but they had pressures themselves, because there is this sort of, it's more than just the three of you, it's more than just your parents and you who are creating this dynamic. There is a whole society around it. There's the pressures you were facing here, there's the pressures they're facing there, there's the the pressure, the tensions between you guys, and then the wanting on both sides for the best for each other, which I think is so beautiful. And what I love so much about kind of my own relationship with my parents is, I think in this way, there's a lot of similarities between us. My parents never forced me to do anything. They really just wanted me to be happy and to find something I could be successful in and could contribute to society while being happy. But I did feel this sense for us. They moved us here right before college. So I did feel this sense that they had given up so much.
Exactly.
That I wanted to give back to them and that I owed it to them in some way to be successful. And this was a path towards that. And so once I did that, again, I could kind of branch out. But the first step was to make sure that I made the most of the opportunities they were giving me.
And that's exactly right. That's how I felt too.
So how did you transition from just being corporate counsel at a health company, which, is kind of tangentially related, to branching out and wanting to do this thing on your own?
Because I had settled in terms of the daytime career, I knew that I wanted to do something else outside. And this first came from the time when I was preparing for the bar. When I was studying for the bar, I did not have, it was a very transitional time. I did not secure a job at that time. And my lease was up. And so I moved twice in the span of 3 months while I was studying for the bar, and from here, from the US to Korea, because I had a full-time job in Korea at that time for an internship. And so while I was moving multiple times throughout the few months that I had studying for the bar and having a full-time job and then studying for the bar, I was really pushing my limits. I was handling something beyond what I thought was possible. I thought law school was hard, but kind of squeezing that in, like balancing family and the bar and a job and a living situation at the same time was very challenging for me. And it taught me how to manage time better and try to kind of maintain my inner peace despite the outer chaos. And when I did pass the bar, I felt this sense of accomplishment where it wasn't just about passing the bar. I thought to myself, if I'm able to handle this kind of pressure with things that I have to do, how much can I do with almost no pressure with things that I want to do? And so I am already enjoying my daytime job. So what can I do to utilize and maximize the time that I have outside of it to dedicate my time working with other people and helping them achieve their goals in their physical health?
I love that. That made me smile when you said that, because I think most people would not have taken that as a learning opportunity. They would have just said, I'm never doing that shit again. Like, that was like way too hard. I clearly overstretched myself. Never again. You know what I mean? And they wouldn't have thought, how can I transition what I learned to expand my life?
Mm-hmm.
So that's amazing. And let's dive into kind of what your first steps were, how you decided to which steps to take, because you actually went full in and kind of got certified and did the whole thing. Kind of what was your thought process and how did you dive into that, the new job or the new side, do you call it business? You side hustle? What's your preferred passion project?
It could be all of those. I like all of those things. So when I passed the bar and was sworn in December of the same year that I took the bar, I immediately dedicated myself to getting certified in personal training. And actually I studied for the certification right before I started studying for the bar, but I failed by one question. And it was because I was just so stressed about the upcoming bar studying that I just couldn't focus on it at all. And so I was just so anxious to get it over with the bar and get back to my personal training. And so when I did that, I passed in December, the same month that I got sworn in. And then I immediately went to the large gym next to my apartment. I just walked in and I said, I got certified. Can I have a job? Basically. And like I could see all these other personal trainers who seemed very experienced. They were dealing with clients on just a level that was just beyond me. Like I had zero experience, but the manager there happened to be just such a generous person. And he gave me that opportunity. And I started working there in the evenings for about 3 months. And I was still in DC at the time in my education law role. And then I had to move to the Baltimore area for my new job as a healthcare attorney. And then so when I moved, there was no gym next to my house. Like I would have to drive somewhere, like at least like 5 to 10 minutes. And I thought that, well, what if I start my own business? And so then I started advertising online. I talked to other clients. I just kind of looked up whatever I could find on starting my own online business. And then it just kind of grew from there.
So far, the thing I like most about your story is that you started it sounding like you were so unsure and you kind of just fell into the law. But then as your story unravels, your ability to just take action is astounding. Like you decide you want to do something and you just do it.
Thank you.
Have you always been that way?
Not really. I think it really started with the whole bar thing. When I realized that I was more capable than I thought, I just started kind of thinking I should just do it first and then see what happens. I
absolutely love that. And I think a lot of people have that event in their life. I don't know that for a lot of people it's the bar. And I think it's amazing for you that it was. I think for a lot of women, it ends up being something like having kids. You make a human and all of a sudden you feel like a superhero. At least that's how I felt. I was like, I make people.
That's awesome.
So that's super cool. So you've taken all this questions. You're a personal trainer now, and you work specifically with lawyers. Why did you decide to focus your business in that way?
Well, I think just a few months back, I started reflecting on how can I make my certification most effective? How can I serve the people that I want to serve most effectively? And I had worked with a lot of different clients, and a lot of them were actually attorneys. And I realized that I enjoyed working with attorneys the most, even though I loved all of my clients so much. I felt like I was giving to them and they were giving to me the most, because we just understood each other. And that was kind of something that was on the back of my mind. But as I took more courses and looked at more resources on how to grow my business, I was exposed to the idea of an ideal client. And that meant that I had to focus on this one ideal client that would benefit most. And what that looked like to me was working with lawyers who kind of went through the same or similar experience that I did, as someone who is either a lawyer or working towards being a lawyer. And that was when I was able to just focus better and serve my clients better.
So let's talk about that a little. So lawyers, I would say I would add myself in this group, really struggle to prioritize our health. Whether it's because we don't have the time or we don't have the energy or we don't have the motivation. And I'm sure that you can rattle off some statistics or some facts that will help us overcome our misconceptions about what it actually takes and the impact it would make in our lives. Like, how much time really do people need to devote towards their physical fitness or their diet to really make a perceivable impact in their life going forward?
I think that the first thing that I would recommend, like, it would all depend on your goal and your intention. And my kind of like model of coaching is towards strength. And so
interesting.
So it's not
I am the least strong person. Like, I'm so not strong. So I find that so interesting.
So, like, I mean, it doesn't have to be strength, like in and of on its own. Like, you don't have to have strength as the only goal, but that is what I advocate for, because when I initially started my own health journey, I thought that being healthy was losing weight and being in a certain weight range so that I just fit into a certain bracket that I saw online. And when I did lose weight, I realized that I didn't feel happy. I didn't find the satisfaction and the positive body image that I was looking for, and the kind of more positive mental state that I wanted to be in terms of my body and the way I felt after eating food. And so then that's when I kind of turned to social media. And that's where I learned that strength was the answer rather than just weight loss. Because when you feel stronger, you start to focus less on the numbers and more on how you feel and what it is that you feel, not what anybody else says, not some number on some website or something like that. And so that's why I kind of came about the whole strength aspect. And to answer your question about time, so if your goal is to be stronger, then it's really about starting small. You don't have to do everything at once. I recommend starting on with one goal at a time. And when I talk about goal, I focus on intention-driven goals rather than results-driven goals. So, for example, a lot of people that I've seen have goals where, like, oh, I want to lose 10 pounds in 3 weeks or 4 weeks, something like that. That I would call that a results-driven goal. Like, by the end of 4 weeks, you want to see 10 pounds off the scale. Intentions-driven goal is more like, for 4 weeks, I want to make sure that every single day I spend at least 10 minutes at 7 a.m. doing, like, running or doing strength training or something like that. I am going to do it every single morning at 7 a.m. And the difference is that the intention-driven goal, where you say that you're going to do a certain thing at a specific time, that is fully under your control. You will do that every single day. And once you do that, it doesn't really matter what the results are. It doesn't matter whether you have lost weight or not. What matters is that you were able to do it, and that's going to empower you to move on to the next goal and work on your strength even more. Whereas something like a results-driven goal, where if you don't lose weight, if you don't lose the 10 pounds in 4 weeks, you're going to be like, oh, I'm a failure and I'm doing something wrong. And it's going to kind of spiral into that negative place where you just feel lost in what to do next, because it's the results-driven goal is just driven by the fact that once I reach this result, it's going to be finished. And so I would kind of focus less on the amount of time it takes. It can take 10 minutes a day, 20 minutes a day, or 30 minutes a day. But what makes the most sense and what's going to drive you the most, I think, will be the mindset.
Interesting. And so this is how naive I am. Like, I literally have zero physical activity in my current schedule. Are strength and endurance different goals?
No, strength and endurance, they're pretty similar. But how I see it is that endurance is being able to lift like 5 pounds dumbbells, I guess, for 10 reps, whereas strength is being able to lift like 20-pound dumbbells 3 to 5 times. And it's more like strength is more like power, whereas endurance is being able to last longer with a smaller weight.
Because endurance is, I feel like if I had to think about what my fitness goal would be, that would be it, my core goal, because I just get winded like all the time. Mm-hmm. And I feel like I'm too young to be this unhealthy. And again, to your point, it's not that this number on the scale or the number in my pants have changed. It's just the condition of my body is not what it used to be. Mm-hmm. So I should probably do something about that, is what I'm gathering from this conversation.
Well, so first of all, I want to say that that's very common. When you are either working out for the first time in a while, or you're climbing a set of stairs for the first time in a while, or trying something new, it is very, very normal to, number one, be winded, feel winded. And number two, if you're doing strength training, to be sore for days. And those two physiological responses it's just a response, it's just a kind of a defense mechanism to tell your body, oh my gosh, you are being really, overworked right now, be careful. But really what's going on is that you're training and you're prepping your body for a more challenging task. And so it's okay to be going through those things and to try again the next day or a couple of days later. And the important thing is to not give up just because you are going through those things. And a lot of the times we feel like, oh, I'm being winded. I'm feeling winded, like I should stop or I should do something else. But actually, you are absolutely on the right track.
So let's touch briefly on how diet complements your fitness goals and kind of your physical fitness activities, your physical training. Mm-hmm.
So I first got into exercise because that had the most immediate results for me. When I was feeling down, I would exercise and then that would just kind of better my mood immediately. Food, I had a more complicated relationship with, and I think this might be the case for many people as well. I felt like, I was just feeling bloated, full, and all the time, and I had acid reflux. And for me personally, that changed completely when I transitioned to a plant-based diet. And that was because I learned later on that for me, my body personally was not very good at interacting with animal hormones. Animal hormones were disrupting my own hormone levels. And that was messing up my digestive system, which was causing the bloating and the acid reflux. But the vegan diet or the plant-based diet was not the answer to everything. Like once I turned vegan, for the first 6 months, I got sick like 5 times. I got a cold for like 5 times. And that was unheard of. I've never had that experience in maybe forever. And the reason for that was that I had no idea what I had to cook. I had no idea what I was eating. I was eating the same avocado toast every single day. And so my immune system was compromised. It was not getting the variety of nutrition it needed. And so once I understood with each transition, the the things that were good for me and the things that were not good for me, I started making changes. I started adding more variety to my diet, making sure that I had those B12 vitamins in my diet. And once I had the variety, I was more on track. And so the way that complements my lifestyle is that it helps me stay on track. It helps me monitor my appetite. It helps me maintain my immune system. That's how I would summarize that.
So before we jumped on, I was just telling Angela about how since going to a plant-based diet, I have been having a couple of health issues, just same with kind of not getting the right things. And so I need to be a little bit more focused on that B12 and vitamin D and things like that, which I think are very typical for people who are making the transition. But for people who don't know, could you briefly explain the difference between the term vegan and plant-based?
Yeah, so I had to Google this to confirm, but basically vegan is more a political term, whereas plant-based is more a descriptive term for food. Plant-based food means that it's like, for example, an Oreo, that is not a plant-based food, but it's vegan because it doesn't have any animal products in it. But it's not plant-based because it's not made
plant-based.
Exactly. It's not made out of plants. It's more made out of chemicals. So I guess vegan lifestyle is kind of more the accurate term when you describe somebody, whereas plant-based diet is something that you would say when you're talking about the food that you eat.
Yep. That's my understanding as well. It's like vegan people don't wear like leather. They don't, it's the whole shebang. It's the whole lifestyle. And it's the whole fur. Like someone who was on a plant-based diet could theoretically choose to wear fur. That wouldn't be a conflict in principles.
Yes.
Fantastic. So for those out there in my audience who want to be healthier, who are struggling to find the time, the motivation, what's one simple change that they could try to implement today to move them towards a healthier lifestyle?
So for me, there are like 3 pillars of health, which is sleep, nutrition, and exercise in that order. And I think sleep is something that we often don't talk about. And so I can kind of break down like by those 3 categories. So if you want to make change in your sleep, I would say set an alarm for when you go to bed, not when you feel like you should, but like when you want to. I think that you should start your health journey on your own terms. And when it comes to nutrition, one simple thing you can do is take an inventory of your fridge. Just open your fridge and throw in the garbage, everything that is rotten, everything that has expired. And as a bonus, you can get rid of some stuff from the pantry as well. And even as a further bonus, you can take out all the stuff that you want to cut, like if it's sugar, then throw away all the cereal and the ice cream, and it'll feel like a fresh start, and you'll have so much room for the new stuff that you want to add to your diet. And in terms of exercise, if you are just starting out on your health journey, I would just dedicate 10 minutes. It doesn't matter if it's in the morning, afternoon, or evening, just 10 minutes. You just have to pick 5 exercises that you know, like sit-ups, push-ups, jumping jacks, plank, squats, and spend 1 minute on each exercise. And I just listed 5. So spend 1 minute on each exercise and do that 2 times. And that's 10 minutes. And if you focus on the feeling that you get afterwards and it's positive, you'll find a way to make it happen again.
I love that. That was so simple and so useful. And I love that you included sleep in that, because I'm a huge proponent of sleep. I get my 8 hours every single night.
That's amazing. You're better than me on that.
Oh my gosh. I would be useless without my sleep. All right. Well, we are going to transition to the second segment of the show, which is called the Happiness Hot Seat. And so this is just a round of 5 quick fire questions that I ask every guest that comes on the show. Are you ready to dive in?
Yes.
So, number 1, how do you make difficult or scary decisions?
The first question I ask is this going to get me closer to my goal? And the second question is this the right time to do it? And If the answer to both is yes, then I go for it. If I'm not sure, then I ask my husband, and he really helps address all of my doubts. And I usually come up with a solid answer after I speak with him.
Question. I'm not supposed to ask follow-ups, I know. So you ask your husband, what do you tell is it like a discussion with your husband? Do you bring him a pro and con list, or do you kind of just like, is he just a sounding board for you to talk through it?
Yeah, it's more like a sounding board. Like, for example, if I want to make an investment in my business, I say, and it's kind of a large sum of money. And I say, like, this is the investment that I want to make. And I think that is going to help my goal in this way. And I think that's the time right now because of this. But here are my doubts. And then he'll say something like, well, I don't think it's going to help your business, or I don't right now is a good time. And then I say, okay, you're right, I won't do it. Whereas in other instances, I'll say the same thing. And he says, you know what, you're right, you should go for it.
I love that. Okay. So number 2, what do you do to prioritize your own happiness?
I am very protective of my time. I rarely compromise on my weekday morning routines. So like in the morning, I pray, I exercise, and spend at least 2 hours working on my goal. And if I don't do this, the rest of the day feels out of order, and I kind of get off track on terms of like my own happiness.
2 hours?
Yes.
What time do you wake up?
At 4:30.
No wonder you're not getting your sleep.
You're right.
It's all coming together now. I'm fast asleep. That's why my goals aren't coming true. I'm sleeping through goal time. Jeez, how long have you been doing that?
I think ever since I started working here, which has been about nine months.
Good for you.
Yeah. Thank you.
It's intense. I'm clearly someone who loves my sleep. It's like, even when I had kids, I got my sleep. Number 3, describe a mindset shift that changed your life.
My mindset, like the thing that I find the most answers from, is the mindset that I can trust and control no one but myself. So for me, unhappiness comes from trying to control things that are outside of my control. And so whenever I feel like my inner peace is at stake, I go back to that statement. I can control nothing but myself. So that's what I'm going to focus on.
Awesome. Number 4, name a book that has inspired you on your journey.
I'm going to have to admit on here that I'm not a big reader.
Interesting.
Yes, I'm not a big reader, but there are a couple, because what I do mostly is because I feel like a while ago, the thing to do, the golden rule, was to read a lot and write a lot. But I think now, with like the 21st century, I think the golden rule is more consume a lot and produce a lot. So you don't have to consume necessarily books. You can consume audio, like podcasts like this. You can consume videos, and that's what I like to do a little bit more than reading. But
before we go on, what do you consume? Is it video, podcast? Where do you like to learn?
So in the car, podcasts. But as part of my morning routine, when I'm like during the 2 hours that I spend for myself, I'm on YouTube.
I love YouTube. Who are you watching? Whose channels are you on YouTube?
My go-to is Evan Carmichael.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah, he like his videos are like 10, 15 minutes, which is perfect for me to finish my breakfast. And so that's my go-to.
Awesome. Sorry, I love YouTube, and I'm always looking for new podcasts. So I appreciate other people's suggestions.
Yeah. Yes. So the books, back to the books.
Please.
So the book that really, one thing, like I rarely read books like from cover to cover, but this book, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck, I read by Mark Manson. I did read this from cover to cover because I just felt like the more I read it, I wanted to really apply it, and I just wanted to get more out of it. And it kind of was a starting point of giving me the courage that I needed to be more open and honest. And another book that I really like is Atomic Habits by James Clear. Mm-hmm. It kind of gave life and validation to my very extensive morning routines. Like my family is just kind of saying, why are you doing this? It's crazy. Like, go to sleep. But then reading this book, I just felt like, there are people out there who are doing this. So I don't feel quite alone. So that was good.
Yep. No, Tomic Habits, that's his newest book. And I love James Clear, and I haven't read it yet, but I've heard it's really good.
Yeah.
So, number 5, last question. What do you think separates happy lawyers from lawyers who struggle to find happiness in life with a law degree?
Belief. If you believe that there is time for your goals, you will have time. If you believe that even if you fail, you can get back on track, you will. And if you believe in your heart more than all of the noise out there, you will attract the right resources. People used to say, I have to see it before I believe it. But I think that's a little bit old school. I think that you have to believe it before you see it, because you're the one in control. So like if you want to make a change right now and you believe you can do it, there is absolutely nothing stopping you.
Awesome. So motivational. So before we wrap up, I just want to throw a listener question at you. So before every show, I like to kind of reach out to my audience and see if anybody has any questions for my guest. And I received a question back from a gentleman named Michael on Instagram in my DMs. And he wanted to know, he eats a lot of takeout and is at his desk a lot as part of his job. Do you have any tips for those long days in the office, whether they're tips for physical activities he could be doing or better food he could be ordering for takeout at his desk? Just any thoughts you may have for Michael, who's stuck at his desk on an 18-hour workday and trying to keep his, energy level up and health in good shape.
Yes. So I think that the first thing that a lot of people think of when it comes to meal planning is that it's intimidating. It's just so much to do. And the reason is because we're unfamiliar with it. It's still intimidating for me sometimes. But there are a few things that I learned from doing it. It's like the first lesson is that the more time you spend in the kitchen, the cleaner your kitchen is. And this is because you practice how to cook more efficiently. So you learn tricks on how to minimize the dishes and cook things faster. And if we learned anything from Marie Kondo, having a tidier kitchen, having a tidier living space in your environment only helps you save time and energy and gives you more peace. And that's the first thing I learned about meal planning. And the second is that meal prepping can be done in an hour. So the more time you spend, the less money you need to spend on the groceries. And the less time you spend in the kitchen, the more money you need to spend in the grocery. So for example, canned foods can be faster, but are more expensive than raw foods. But I think the price difference is minimal. The third thing is that you actually save more time. This is the most important thing. You actually save more time by spending more time in the kitchen, because a lot of the times we spend so much energy and brain power thinking about what to eat and when, and you spend so much just kind of energy like digesting all of that food that is not good for you and is not right for you. I mean, some people, their body aligns with takeout food, but some people do not. So I would say to Michael, if the takeout food does not align with your body and your body is not responding very well and it's getting in the way of your productivity, I think it is a good investment of time and energy to get over with the meal planning in an hour with maybe like $80 for 1 to 2 people for the week, and you're set for the week. No more worrying about what to eat, especially when you're just really tired of the same takeout each day and you're kind of feeling stressed over food that is not good for you. And the other thing is that even if you do take out food, that's totally fine. I mean, that's not bad in and of itself. You can always, I love takeout food sometimes because they always over portion. So I just save half for later. And that's just, you're just getting 2 meals out of 1 takeout. And I think that's not bad at all.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like what you're saying. I think in both, whether Michael decides to go towards meal planning or goes towards takeout, it's really about intentionality on your portions and what you're consuming. And exactly. That you shouldn't just you should plan ahead a little bit and just not order the first thing that comes to your mind at 10 o'clock at night, which is probably going to be bad for you, and then eat the whole thing because you didn't think about how much food there's going to be. That seems like the worst way to go about it. But as far as meal planning, do you have any resources that people could check out online or books or anything like that for people who are not familiar with the process?
Yeah, so there are two things that I recommend. The first is if you don't want to spend any money on anything right now to plan your meals, you can Google maybe 2 or 3 recipes for the whole week, whether it's lunch or dinner. And so let's start with avocado toast. If you want that as your breakfast, for example, write out avocado toast in the first column, like write in your notebook, have a few columns, write out avocado toast, and then next to it, list all the ingredients that you need. So avocado and bread and salt and pepper, whatever it is that you want to put on your toast. And then if you have avocados, you can just cross it out. If you don't have avocados, you circle it. And then by the time you've listed out all the things that you want to eat for the week and how many times you want to eat it, you will have exactly the ingredients that you need to buy at the grocery store. And then you have your list. Go to the grocery store, get those foods, and spend some time at home making them and preparing them. If you want more creativity and if you feel like you are able to kind of take the next step and make an investment, I've been using the Live Kindly meal planner. It's something new that Live Kindly company released recently, and it's like $14 a month or $99 a year as of today, I guess. And it's been really helping me a lot because I just pick whatever recipes that I want to eat within the time frames that I prefer, and they give me all of the ingredients, and it's just super easy.
Awesome. Thank you so much for all of that. Before I let you go, what's the best way for people to learn more about your services and follow you online?
Yeah, you can find everything about me on my website at www.angela-han.com. I am also most active on LinkedIn, so you can find me there, Angela Han. And I also post regularly on Instagram, just kind of more like maintenance purposes. And so you can look for Angela Han Health on Instagram.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Angela, for coming on tonight.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks so much for listening. And if you got value out of this episode and you think there's someone else who might enjoy it, I'd love for you guys to share. And if you have any questions for me, please head over to the website at thehappylawyerproject.com and you can leave me a voicemail right on the website. When you get there, you'll see a little tab on the right hand of the screen and you can click on it and leave a voicemail there. I absolutely love hearing from you guys. Last but not least, if you enjoy this podcast and you like the content that I'm bringing to you guys and you haven't done so already, I would really encourage you guys to head over to Apple Podcasts and leave me a rating and review. That's all for this week. Thanks, guys.
Thanks for listening.